Hello chess friends and welcome to the channel. 2 days ago it was round 1 of the Champions Showdown held in St. Louis. This tournament features 5 unique matchups between 5 American players and 5 international grandmasters. 3 days of rapid play followed by 2 days of blitz to test the play of the American players just 1 month ahead of the United States Chess Championship. The game that I'm going to show you today is Harikrishna vs Caruana from round 1, a nice game that I suggest you to watch until the end. Let's start. Pentala Harikrishna with the white pieces opens with e4 and Fabiano Caruana answers with e5. Knight to f3 and knight to f6, the Petrov defense. Knight capture on e5, d6 threatening the knight goes back to f3 and here comes knight capture on e4. d4 pushing in the center, d5 gaining space still in the center and protecting the knight, and bishop to d3. Bishop to f5, castle for white and bishop to e7. c4 now. The main continuation is rook to e1, but Harikrishna want to explore something else. D capture on c4, bishop recapture on c4 and castle for black. Rook to e1, knight to c6 and d5 attacking the knight. Here in database there are 2 important games in this position. Vasheda Grav versus Duda and Naidish against Wei Yi, both played last year in 2018. And both continues with knight to d6. One game is a draw and the other one is a win for white after a long grind. Here comes Caruana's novelty. Knight to b8 that the computer prefers. Knight to d4 targeting the bishop goes back to g6 and knight to c3 attacking the knight. Knight to d6 now with the same idea, attacking the bishop, and bishop to d3 now. Generally, changing the light square bishop in this type of games favors black, but in this position, black doesn't gain anything from this exchange. That's why Caruana prefers to improve the knight. Knight goes to d7, bishop to f4, a6 because controlling b5, because you see that so many pieces are pointing to b5. Now this bishop has no real scope, even if he is in the center of the board, and so Harikrishna, he changed the bishop. Bishop captures on d6, and here of course h recapture on g6, the f pawn can't capture, or there will be the knight fork, knight to e6, winning at least the quality. Here comes h3, and this h3 controls g4, also opens the h2 square for the bishop. This is not a mistake, but it's something that was not required. Much better queen to b3, completing the development. Here comes bishop to f6, rook to c1, controlling the c file. The knight maneuver brings the knight to b6. Here comes knight to f3, rook to c8, and you see that both players are trying to move their pieces to better squares. Queen to b3 and queen to d7, both players completed the development. What can we say about this position? The position is equal, but there is something to notice. White has an isolated d pawn. There are still 3 minor pieces on the board. This should favor white, should give white some initiative. Black, on the contrary, should try to exchange some of these minor pieces. White must find some plan, but it's not so easy. Let's see. Knight to e5, attacking the queen. Here comes bishop captures on e5, bishop recapture on e5. 1 minor pieces went out of the board, but at least white still keep 1 bishop that can be very useful when the center is open, like in this game. Rook in f goes to e8, queen to b4. Black idea is to try to create an isolated pawn also in black's camp. Knight to b5, knight captures on b5, queen recaptures, and Pentala plays queen to d4. A queen exchange was possible. Let's watch what happens. If queen captures on b5, a recaptures on b5, d6 now, f6, attacking the bishop, bishop to d4 because the pawn can't capture or the knight is lost, rook captures, on e1 we check, the rook recaptures, here comes c5, attacking the bishop, and this pawn push can be tricky, because it seems that white can capture with the en passant, but this is not possible, because to capture en passant, the d pawn should be here and not so advanced. In this position, bishop to e3 with an equal position. Let's go back to our game. After queen to d4, queen captures on d4, bishop captures on g7, and here the queen exchange is inevitable. Queen captures on d4 and bishop recaptures on d4. The knight is under attack, the structure will be damaged, so knight to d5, and even with this line, the position is still equal. Now g3, restricting the knight, f6, king to g2, and king to f7. h4, rook captures on e1, rook recaptures on e1, and c5, supported by the rook, attacks the knight. Attacks the bishop. Bishop to e3 and b5. And here we stop 1 second and we notice that the only important feature of this position is that there is a 3 versus 2 on the queen side. Here comes king to f3, perfectly good move. c4, the candidate passer is advancing, and bishop to d2 controlling c3. b4, rook to c1, and here comes f5. g4 now, played by Harikrishna. This is a mistake. Let's go back and let's watch. Here there is a problem for white. The king must be near the queen side to help. a3 was a good move to try. If b captures on a3, b recaptures, c3 now, advancing again and threatening the bishop. The pawn is pinned, but if the king doesn't come near, then the pawn will be able to capture. The rook can't capture the rook because the pawn will promote. So here comes king to e2, and in this position, with the king near the promoting squares, white is able to save the game. Let's go back to the actual game. After g4, f captures we check, king recapture on g4, and the king was pushed far from the important zone of the board. c3, b captures on c3, b recaptures on c3, and in this position, as we said before, even if pinned, the pawn can capture, because if the bishop doesn't move, the pawn will capture. If the rook captures the rook, the pawn will promote to d1. So the bishop must move away, bishop to e1, here comes rook to c4 we check, and the king must go back to help, king to f3, rook captures on h4, and king to e2, rook to h3, f3, and the position is really collapsing. Rook to h2 we check, the king moves to d3, here comes knight to b4 we check, that not only gives check, but is also tactically defending c3, because now if the king captures c3, knight captures on a2 is a winning fork that will win the rook. So king to c4, knight captures on a2, and white has great problems. If the rook moves to a1, here comes c2, and the pawn will promote. So Harikrishna plays bishop to g3, threatening the rook, rook to g2, attacking the bishop, and rook to a1. In this position, c2 seems the easiest way to win the game, but it's not, because there is bishop to f4 protecting c1. So in this position, rook captures on g3, rook captures on a2, and rook captures the final pawn on f3 protecting c3. 2 pawns up, and most important than that, the king position is wrong. The king is behind the pawn instead of being in front of the pawn defending the promoting squares. In this position, if rook captures on a6, this is a variation that I'd like to show you. Here comes c2, rook back to a1, and here comes g5. The king is cut off, the white king is cut off. King to d4, g4. King to e4 attacking the rook, rook to f2, king to e3, and g3. Rook to c1, the rook moves to h2. Even king to f3 doesn't work, because here comes g2, rook to a1, and rook to h1. Even some rook check don't work, because the king will simply slide toward the queen side. King to e6, rook to a6, king to d5, rook to a5 we check, king to c4, rook to a4, and here king to b3, or the most precise, king to b5, win the game, because after rook to a2, the c pawn promote, and it's game over. Let's go back to our game. After rook captures, king to d4, and here comes g5. Rook captures on a6, g4, king to e4, here comes c2, the rook must go back, rook to a1, and here comes the king. King to f6, rook to c1. After rook to f2, Harikrishna resigns. Let's watch some moves together. After a possible king to e3, again the pawn push also protects the rook. Rook to g1, rook to h2. Let's remember this maneuver, because of course the rook can't capture or the c pawn will promote. King to f3 doesn't work, because here comes g2 and the position is won. So it was an interesting game full of important ideas to remember, and I noticed also watching the other games that Caruana is playing really good rapid games. He is dominating his matchup against Harikrishna, and he is really in top form. And I think that he is working hard to improve his rapid and blitz play. There are other interesting games from the Champions Showdown, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and let's review all those nice games together. Our analysis is over. For now, thanks for watching and goodbye.